Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast for June 23rd, 2014. This is episode 70, and I'm JD Duran.
And I'm Brendan Cassidy.
And I'm Brandy Duran.
Listening to the In Session Film Podcast, this is episode 70.
Sherry, baby.
Bob Crew.
Middle?
Hey, Crew. Yeah, I'm sorry we're late, but listen, we got something for you, all right? Right now? No, just listen. Here we go.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sherry.
Set up the 8-track.
What for?
We're gonna double Frankie's voice. It's gonna explode right off the radio.
Never heard of that before.
Because it's never been done before. I'm a genius.
Right, yeah. That's good, right? Right, Crew? Yeah, we'll be right over.
All right, Jersey Boys is directed by Clint Eastwood and stars John Lloyd Young, Eric Bergen, Michael Lamenda, Vincent Piazza, Christopher Walken, and a few other people as well. Before we get into our review of Jersey Boys, I guess I want to toss out there real fast. Have you guys seen the Broadway musical?
I haven't seen it on Broadway, but I have seen a traveling show for it, so I am very familiar with the musical.
Same.
Yes. Brandy and I also saw the traveling musical as
Yes.
well. So we will have those references, I guess, going into the film. So that being said, what do you guys think about the movie Jersey Boys?
For me, it was kind of hard to separate myself having already seen the musical. Going into this movie, I kind of knew what was happening. So it was hard to judge the movie alone. I think if I had not seen the play, I would not have known what was going on the whole time in the movie.
Sure.
But because I knew, how it was all going to play out, I understood the entirety of the movie. Obviously, it's hard to say, would I have understood it if I hadn't seen the play? Probably not, but I can't answer that question since I had seen the play. But besides that, I did enjoy it very much. Of course, the music was great. John Lloyd Young, I thought, played a really great Frankie Valli. Everyone else was great too, but he stood out to me probably because he was a main character.
And he also won a Tony Award for playing this back in 2006 on Broadway. So
Correct.
He's reprising his role here, so that's no surprise.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I thought it was good, not great, because it is kind of a condensed version of the play, I would say. I think there were parts they could have done better to match the play more, give us a little more in-depth look into all of those characters and everything that the play does. But then again, we can't have like a 4-hour movie. So that was my take on everything.
True. So I thought this movie was absolutely fantastic if it were called VH1's Behind the Music.
Nice.
So yeah, you're probably thinking, really? I love the show when I saw it. I love Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons in general. I mean, I grew up listening to their music.
Sure.
That actually helped me get into music. So, bit of a soft spot for the show to begin with. And I also love Clint Eastwood as a director. I really think since like Mystic River back in 2002, I think it was, the guy's made some of the best movies of that decade. From Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, I loved. I love Gran Torino.
Sure.
I love Letters from Iwo Jima. I love his minimalistic approach to filmmaking. So he focuses on the acting, the emotion that these characters use to drive the story. So it's a lot of little things, and his minimalistic approach usually works. Here, I really think Jersey Boys was a case of a miscast director. I mentioned I like Clint Eastwood, but I really don't think he was the right director for this film because it lacked such pizzazz for a musical film, regardless if it's judging it from the actual musical that we know and have seen. It just didn't have that pizzazz and that energy that I would have liked it to.
Yes.
Honestly, the movie's not bad, but I just didn't feel anything during it. I was left feeling just cold.
No, I completely agree with you. I think you do feel Clint Eastwood's kind of raw grittiness in this film that you've seen in a lot of his other films. I can understand why he wanted to direct a story like this because of where it goes in the third act and kind of the downfall of some of these characters and different things like that. And those are the kind of things that I feel like he kind of grabs onto. And when you watch his films, you can see that.
Yeah.
And you can see that he likes to play into those kind of character motives that some of this territory goes down and different things like that. And I think you also feel that in terms of his visual style, because it is kind of dark. It has a lot of grays, and that's kind of the colors that he likes to use to really elevate his aesthetic here. But I completely agree with you. If you watch the Broadway musical, while it does carry some of those tones, it's also very energetic, and they let the music contrast where the story gets a little bit more difficult. There's a really good balance there, and I feel like Eastwood doesn't have the right balance here for the movie. It's also paced incorrectly, in my opinion, too.
I completely
agree.
The
beginning,
yes.
The first act is way too fast-paced, and they don't do any character building at all. In fact, unless you've seen the musical, you probably don't know who any of these characters are until halfway through the movie.
Right.
There's just so much going on here, and because there's no context of where their decisions are coming from, you don't have any clue what's going on. And I even felt lost, and I've seen it, and I like this musical. And it was like, what are you doing, Eastwood? You're not setting up these characters at all. And so I can definitely see if you haven't seen the musical and you didn't know this story at all, you would have no idea about any of these characters and what they're going
You're
through.
going to be lost. In fact, probably for the first half of this movie, you're going to be thinking, did I just step into the unofficial remake of Goodfellas? And you can obviously tell he took a lot of inspiration from Goodfellas, especially when the Joe Pesci character actually shows up. They make a direct Goodfellas reference, which I actually thought was pretty clever.
Yeah, sure.
But he focuses so hard on the crime drama, the mob element of it early on, which does play a big part in the story. I mean, it is important to tell.
It does.
It's just...
But he catches up in the middle of it, and if you don't know these characters right away, you're not going to completely understand that unless you just assume things.
I agree, and I think that was a misstep in just the focus of this movie and the execution of it. It was just it was quite messy.
Yeah, well, like you guys said, I think Clint Eastwood does good in the parts where it's focusing on Tommy DeVito and all of his wrongdoings, and I think that's where he shines. But when I think musical, I do not think Clint Eastwood. So I think that's why it loses its electricity.
Well, which is kind of ironic because Clint Eastwood's actually known for being well in tune with music. And in fact, what most people don't know is that if you look at all of his films, especially since Mr. River onward, he composed the score for every single one of his movies. The guy's a well-renowned jazz player. He's actually directed a movie called Bird, I think, back in the early or late 80s, I think it was. I forget exactly what year it was, but it was a music-based film. It was about jazz. So the guy knows his music, but at the same time, for a show like Jersey Boys, which, like I said, regardless if you're judging it based on the musical or not, it's a show that needs to be vibrant. It's a show or a movie rather, that really needed that energy to help push the story along. Because especially in the second act, when it does go to some dark places, without that energy and that pizzazz, I just was left feeling cold and underwhelmed during that. I didn't really care about what was going on, especially since he failed to establish these characters in the beginning too.
Yeah, and especially because these characters, and again, it's hard for me to come in here non-biased since I've seen the musical and I do like it.
Me too.
But these characters are very compelling, and they're very energetic, and they're very foul-mouthed. And we do get some of that, but not to the level that we see on the play. And I think that's what brings a lot of humor into these characters and kind of make them a little charismatic, even though in some ways they're unlikable. And they do kind of play into the mob thing as you're talking about. But there's something about that kind of Jersey aesthetic that made the play really attractive, and it was just really funny, and I thought they played into that really well. And here Eastwood wasn't exactly sure how to handle that. In the play there's a lot of breaking the fourth wall, and in the film it opens up very much the same way as the play does, but Eastwood does not do a very good job of utilizing that to set up these characters. And that to me was a huge misstep, because right away I felt like I was in the middle of another story. Like there was nothing there to set up necessarily who these guys are, where they're coming from, or anything like that. I feel like the play did that much better, and there's more scenes there. Obviously, he cut out a lot of the beginning of the musical, and so he does kind of catch up partway through the first act of the actual play. So I kind of get that, but to me that was just a For the entire version of our podcast, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or on Stitcher, or check us out online at InSessionFilm.com.